Yes, you read the thumbnail correctly, and no, this isn't clickbait. I actually built a Lego Clone Army for free. I simply did this by buying large Lego minifigure lots, selling off all the other figures, and keeping the clones. This allowed me to build this collection for free, and you could actually use the same techniques that I did to either build your clone army, build a droid army, or expand any Lego collection you have. You could also probably use this information to build up any other collection outside of Lego that you might have, and you for sure can use this information to make some money by selling Lego online. There's your short and sweet answer to the thumbnail. For those of you who are signing off, please hit that like button. And for those of you sticking around, I'm going to get right into the video now and break down everything, tell you the pros, cons, things that were great, things that were bad, and the entire finances of this entire project. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I came up with a goal to get 100 of the original Lego Star Wars Clone Troopers. Yes, 100 of them. This Lego Clone Trooper was the very first clone that ever came out. It was released in 2002 and was also in 2003. 4 of them came with the AT-TE and 4 of them came with the Republic gunship. This was a very cool clone. I loved it growing up. It was my favorite. Out of all these 100 clones behind me, I could actually tell you the first 2 clones that I had because of the amount of wear and tear on them. I put the clone in every starfighter I had. I brought it with me pretty much anywhere I went, and I incorporated it with any Lego set I had just because I loved the clone. 100 clone troopers is a lot to collect. I actually did start with 40 from my original clone collection, and these ones I acquired through trades, buying them in auctions, and so forth. I had those 40, and then about a year ago I decided I wanted to get 100 clones. Well, the clones were costing $20 a piece. My first thing I did was I bought 6 on Bricklink from somebody that had them at $20 a piece. Then I bought 3 more, maybe a couple weeks later from somebody. My first vision was, buy parts I need and acquire a clone if possible, and do that over the course of a couple of years, and it won't be as bad. Now, 60 clones is roughly $1,200 because each clone nowadays is $20 to $25, so that adds up real quickly. I then came to the realization after buying these 9 clones that, hey, I need 51 more clones, and all the time I'm buying giant lots on eBay of parts, and I'm sorting them. I'm listing parts for sale. I'm recreating Lego sets. I'm listing them for sale, and I'm often keeping some small things for my collection, whether it be train sets, other Star Wars figures, random figures, space sets, you name it. I'm keeping anything here and there that I want for my collection, and I'm often selling things off, making money, and growing my collection for free. I'm looking at it as I have free time, I'm using that free time, and therefore I'm really only looking at the finances of it all. I'm not looking at my hourly rate or how many hours. I don't even know how many hours this entire project took me. It doesn't even matter to me, but I do know the finances, and that's why now I'm going to go into auction number 1. All right, the first auction I won was on January 24th, 2024, so a little over a year ago. I got 2 clones from this lot, bringing the new total up to 51 clone troopers. I won it for $86.78 and listed everything for about $65. Just about everything from that lot has sold since this year has passed, therefore each clone cost me roughly $10.89. $10.89 a figure is much better than $20 or $25 a clone trooper, but don't worry, it gets much better than that. And that brings me into auction number 2. The next auction I won cost me $98.58. I acquired actually 3 clones with this lot, and I listed everything for $93.60. Now, if we assume everything in that lot sold, that means I got each clone trooper for $1.66 a figure. That's even better. I mean, this was kind of the part where I started realizing, wow, this could work and I could save money. And the benefit with buying lots and listing them for sale is that I already have a Bricklink store. So if I list $100 of figures and parts to my store, that figure might sell tomorrow, but it's often selling with stuff that I've listed months ago, weeks ago, or in some cases, I've had stuff listed for over a year, and that stuff is now moving off the shelves. So this isn't just about, selling what I currently bought. It's helping me boost the store and sell other things and get a lot of inventory out the door and grow the store in a way, which is pretty awesome. Towards the end, I'll talk about how much has actually sold and how much money I'm kind of in the hole, but in theory, give it another 6 months from now and all this stuff should be gone, or 95 to 99% of it will be sold, and therefore clones will be free. Moving into auction number 3. This next auction was a big one, but it wasn't even close to the biggest one I bought, which you'll see towards the end of the video, and some of you might, it was a lot of money I spent on one of them, but we'll get there. For this auction, I spent $294.13. I was able to keep 3 clones from this lot, and I listed everything for $621.74. This was huge. This lot had several figures in it that were rare or unique, and it was just a bunch of figures to begin with, and therefore it listed for much more than I thought. Plus, they were in great condition, minimal cracks, minimal defects and problems to the figures. It was fantastic. It was definitely a huge, huge win, And this was really the point where I started realizing, oh my gosh, this is helping Bricklink and I'm getting clones for free. What could be better? Originally, I wanted to get clones for free, but now I'm making money and getting the clones. Auction number 4 is so far the highest priced one. I spent $685.83. This is where some people would say, why not just spend the money on the clones in someone's store? Well, I'm buying lots of Lego to have fun. I like going through this process and I'm enjoying collecting the clones. And that's why I decided to do this. It's a decent amount of money to spend to then kind of have sitting on a shelf or sitting in my inventory. Because it's not like when I say I list something, it's not like, oh, it's sold tomorrow and I have that money back in my hand. Oftentimes it's sitting there for a while and your money, your opportunity cost, or my availability to spend that money elsewhere is now gone. And I can't just take that $680 or the $700 and spend it elsewhere. After spending almost $700 on this lot, I listed it for over $1,300, which I was shocked. I really thought I was almost overpaying or close to paying what this lot would have been worth for all these parts. However, it was a much greater buy than I could have ever imagined. The actual listed value was $1,306. This was honestly insane, and just about all of it has actually sold today because there were a lot of Imperial torsos and figures, clone torsos, clone helmets, you name it. Very popular stuff that really moved off the shelves quickly, and it took other stuff in my inventory with it. So this was by far one of the greatest auctions I've ever had while running my Bricklink store, not even just acquiring clones. I did also get 8 full clones and 3 additional clone helmets from this lot, which everything about this lot was probably my best auction to date ever. The next auction actually cost me $279.73. Now, all these prices do include the shipping, taxes, and any other fees. This isn't just like the winning price for the lot. In some cases, it might be if it has free shipping, but these prices include what I actually paid. I was able to list this lot for $378, and I acquired 1 more clone helmet. I do consider that a good win. 1 clone helmet plus the listing price is higher than the purchase price. That's what we want to see. This brings us to auction number 6. This one was not good in my opinion. I spent $156.35 on the lot. I did get 3 clones, but I was only able to list everything else for $106.49. Each clone essentially cost me $16.62, and this is kind of one of those auctions where I would have said, wouldn't it have been better to just spend the $20 per clone, spend $60, get 3 clones, and done? Essentially though, now that $160 I spent is money gone, and I'm going to try and recuperate some of it in hopes that these clones only cost me $16 a piece. I did talk about, free time, and it's my free time, but also this is time I put into this where I could have spent the time, working on other Lego things for either the store or my own collection. This one was not a win in my book. I consider this a poor auction or a poor win on my part. And this is something where if you are trying to make money on Bricklink or, invest your money, this would have been a poor investment in my opinion. The next auction was a nice one. I took a gamble on this one and it worked out. I paid $71.23 and I listed everything for $92.15. I did get 1 clone helmet out of this lot and I consider it a win. Now, in theory, if everything sells, I acquired 1 clone helmet for free, which I could turn into 1 clone trooper, and I made $20. That's pretty good if you ask me. And the reason why this one was a gamble was because there was an old Captain Rex in there and you could see his torso, but he had a helmet on the figure. And the real question was, will his head be under there? And sure enough, it was. So I was able to list that figure because it's worth a little bit of money, and that one did sell. So this was another win. Moving over to the next auction, auction number 8. This auction cost me $206.39, and I was able to list everything for $326.71. I was able to get 1 more clone out of this and list a lot for my store. I was very happy with this win, and then moving right into auction 9 is one of those auctions I wasn't too happy with. Auction number 9 was a bunch of damaged pieces, but I saw a clone helmet in there, and I wanted to take a gamble. This was something where I figured if I can win it at a decent price, it's either going to be money spent and wasted, but I kind of wanted to go through the process of going through the damaged parts to see what was salvageable. Turns out there were some things that were salvageable. For auction number 9, I actually spent $39.12. Now, again, these parts were damaged, but after salvaging them, I was able to list everything for over $54, which was great. However, the clone helmet in this lot had all sorts of red, paint and almost like a glue on the helmet that I cannot get off for the life of me. And even if I did, it would pull all the other prints with it. So this was just a dud. I held on to the helmet, but it's pretty much trash and it can't be restored. So this lot was I kind of broke even, but it's still a relative loss. It didn't help my collection and it really didn't help my store. So we're going to count it as a loss. Auction number 10 cost me $114.22. The clones in this lot were in pretty good condition, which is awesome. I only sold everything else though in the lot for $55.49, which isn't pretty, that's not great. But on the grand scheme of things, these were Lego Star Wars figures that were pretty nice to see and, play with again briefly before listing them for sale. And they were figures that move off the shelf quickly. They're the vintage or the original Lego Star Wars minifigures that tend to sell at the right price. So I find that when I'm listing at the average price or a little below that average price, these figures move pretty quickly. Auction number 10 actually cost me about $15 a Clone Trooper, which I consider that a win. Not a great win, but this is something where it was worth it. And it wouldn't have been worth it as like an investment, but it was worth it to acquire these clones at $15 a piece. The next auction was one that I probably didn't need. I think I got to a point where I really wanted to hit the 100 clone mark sooner than I was on track for, and I decided to buy this auction. I spent $124.22. This lot came with Jedi Bob and 2 Clone Troopers. Now, if Jedi Bob sells, each clone will cost me $15. That sounds great, but I'm pretty sure I'll need to drop the price for Jedi Bob to sell him, and then that means each clone's going to cost me about $15 to $25. So not a great win in my book. I have Jedi Bob as well already, so he's not a figure I necessarily need, and he's not a figure that I'd want to spend that kind of money on because I have one. If I didn't have one, maybe, but I don't need duplicates of Jedi Bob. I have the new one too. That's a fun set. Check it out here. This brings us to auction number 12. This one was a win at $138.33. I was able to list everything for $140.18, so just slightly over what I paid for it. I only got 1 clone out of this, but again, this is free time, and, the clone was free to me. The lot after this, number 13, cost me $299.65. I was able to list everything in this lot for $338.79. I was able to keep 1 clone and 1 helmet from this lot. I consider this a win. It's not a great win. A win's a win. My goal is to save money and build my clone army, and this lot helped me achieve that. But again, this is something where, I'm spending over $300 to get 1 or 2 clones. It's not like I listed everything for $600 or $700. I'm listing everything else for just slightly over what I'm paying for everything else. So if everything does sell, which most of it really has been, which is amazing, if everything sells, I'm essentially acquiring these clones for free and making a little bit of money to subsidize other parts of the Bricklink store. Lot number 14 actually cost me $638.88. Although this was a bit much to spend on figures, I acquired 8 good condition Clone Troopers from this lot, which is awesome. I was able to list everything else for $620.64. So if that all sells, each figure cost me around $2.28. Or you can look at this as $141 saved, which honestly, 8 clones for this lot and that pricing, I was extremely happy with it. And it's not like I made a bunch of money on it, but I acquired 8 clones for relatively free, which is pretty awesome. Or 7 for free and I paid for 1, however you want to look at it. Auction number 15 is the auction that some of you will not believe, and I wouldn't even want my parents to hear this number. Auction number 15 cost me $1,335.60. This was a huge lot with Lego sets, Star Wars figures, you name it. It was very fun to go through. It took a lot of time, probably 4 weeks of free time and after work and whatnot going through it, but it was enjoyable. I got to piece together several Star Wars sets, list cool figures for sale, and honestly, they were pretty good condition figures. I tried to piece everything together and sell it appropriately. One of those was the Geonosian Starfighter, another was the Imperial Dropship, you name it. There was a Clone Wars ATTE in there. Lots of cool, fun sets. Unfortunately, I don't have great photos of the eBay listing, but it was definitely a fun auction to go through. I actually ended up keeping a Republic gunship and an ATTE from this lot. Both the original sets, 8 Clone Troopers, and I listed everything else in this auction for $1,477.34. Just about all of it has sold, which is pretty amazing. If the rest of it sells, I pretty much got an ATTE, a gunship, and 8 clones for free. This was another amazing win. This one, along with the other one where I acquired 8 clones and 3 helmets, these were the 2 best auctions I had during this entire process, and they were amazing. I was very thrilled with how this one worked out. I was on the fence when I first bought it, thinking that, hey, I might have just really spent money that I won't recuperate. However, I did briefly, when I'm looking at all these auctions, anytime I had time to look at it, I would spend the time, write everything out, and figure out a general idea of what is this stuff worth when I sell it, and therefore what should I be spending on it to win the auction. I have a video on eBay about how to win auctions. It's a very popular video with over 30,000 views. Just watch the first minute of it if you are tired of losing eBay auctions, because I was really sick and tired of losing auctions as a kid. I found out the best ways to do it, and I just made a simple video on it, and I tell you all the answers right away. And then if you want to hear all sorts of more information about it, you can stay tuned in the video. But honestly, it's worth the click. Okay, so that last auction I really thought was going to bring me to 100 clone troopers. Well, knowing me, I didn't count properly, and that's okay. Stuff happens. But I actually only ended up having 99 clones after acquiring this lot, which is fine. I then just realized, I had stopped looking at auctions. I spent about 4 weeks going through that auction to piece it together and sell stuff. And then I realized, oh, I'm short on clones. So then I had to find more auctions, and henceforth, that's why there's a little bit of a gap between posting some of those shorts and, why this series is ending a little later in the year. However, I was able to acquire my final auction, auction number 16. Auction number 16 cost me $330.95. I was able to list everything for $477.60. However, there are a few things from this lot that I didn't list for sale yet, and those are a couple minifigures that need parts to list them, and then a couple sets that also need parts. The sets have their boxes, the instruction manuals, and the figures, which is amazing. So I really just need to get the parts, some decal parts, and I'll be able to list these for sale. Now, I'm not counting what those list values would be for this. I'm kind of throwing out a number as to what I currently believe they're worth, and then I'll spend the money or find the parts in my collection to complete them, and then I'll list them for sale. So let's say I was to list all this stuff for 200, I would value it at 150 right now. But whatever I came up with the value for, I'm going to say that this entire lot has listed for $567.60. Just like that, I now have my 100 clone troopers, and the collection is now complete. That was the final auction, but now I'm going to run through a couple statistics to briefly outline this entire process, what I spent, what sold and whatnot. But before I do that, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you want to see more content. I post train content. I'm getting into some Star Wars content because I love collecting Lego Star Wars clones, and I'm working on Kamino. All good things. All right, looking at the statistics for this timeline was roughly January 2024 to December 2024. Obviously, I'm still working on it in February, but I acquired auctions from January to December, and then it took me until right now in February to finish listing everything and completing these. Those 60 clone troopers, if I was just to spend the money on them, would have cost me $1,260. Instead of $1,260 to get 60 clones, how much do you think I spent? So the money I spent is going to be on the auctions. I acquired 9 clones by just buying them, and those aren't going to be part of this. So all of this was to acquire 51 clones because I had 40. I bought 9 on Bricklink, so I had 49 clones. I acquired 51. 53 if you actually count the additional 2 I got in my previous auction, but let's just pretend it's just an even 100. So 51 additional clone troopers through auctions. Instead of spending $1,200 to acquire these clones, I spent, do you want to guess? Take a moment to think. I spent $4,899.99. That number is actually accurate, believe it or not. I checked it 3 or 4 times. When I subtract out the money I spent for those 9 clones, this is the actual dollar amount came out to that amount, which is pretty amazing because normally it's going to be like some weird number. But $4,899.99. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Now, moving into the statistics, what did I list it for? I listed it for $6,339.11. That's pretty amazing. That delta is $1,439.12, which means if everything sells, I essentially acquired 51 clone troopers and made over $1,400 profit. Then I just have to pay taxes, essentially. If everything sells, the cost per clone then would be negative $28. That's insane. I could just buy a whole nother bunch of clones and build the army even bigger. I'm beyond shocked at the numbers looking at them now in the final statistics. Now, the actual sold value, so some of you are probably like, well, what actually sold? Did you sell $1,000? Did you sell $2,000? The actual sold value is a rough estimate, but I do believe it is around $4,120.42, give or take. I think that is actually what sold, but that might not be entirely accurate. Now, if that all sold, the money I still need to make back is $779.57. Assuming, like, if nothing sells and I shut down the Bricklink store, then each clone cost me $15.29. So less than $20, but the store is staying open. Things are going to keep moving off the shelves, and I guarantee in the next 6 to 8 months, another large portion of it's going to sell. Now, to get everything sold to make back the actual listed value, which is over $6,300, would take quite some time, but about $6,000 of it is going to entirely be sold off within the next 6 months to a year, which essentially means that I did acquire all these clones for free. Was it worth it? Yes, of course. This was amazing. This worked out great. I helped boost my Bricklink store, sold things, got more inventory moving, acquired the clones, and reached my goal. I reached the goal of getting 100, which is it's phenomenal. I'm super hyped about it, and now I can spend money and time on working on Camino because that really needs some love. I haven't worked on that, and I really need to. Thank you guys for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Hit that like button and let me know what you want to see next. I acquired 100 clones. Maybe I should acquire 100 droids. Maybe I should acquire another 100 clones. Maybe I should acquire like 100 of a really rare clone, like 100 Shadow ARF troopers. No, I do have one of those sealed though, believe it or not. All right, you guys have a great one. Thank you for checking this video out. I appreciate it.
Lego, my Jameso.